content, trying to make it better, but in hindsight, I probably overthought it instead of just getting it done on time. There were also a couple of unexpected meetings that threw me off schedule. But yeah, I see the pattern now.
Okay, and this is what I want to bring to your awareness, which is that missing deadlines like this isn't helping you, and also your team members. It's having an impact on them as well. Does this make sense? Have you ever struggled to give feedback to an underperforming team? Now, in this video, I'm going to show you how you can train yourself to use AI to give constructive feedback to an underperforming team member. One of the things that I get asked a lot as a leadership coach is, Toye, how do I give constructive feedback to an underperforming team? And this happens a lot with founders who have not been trained on how to deal with these type of issues. And there is a framework that I created called the P.A.I.D framework. But one of the things that I found out was whenever I train this, people realize that they're most likely using it in real time. And one of the ways to become comfortable with any kind of skill is to find a way to practice with somebody. And so role playing is definitely a great way of doing that. But what about if you don't have that space as a founder? You're the one who is overseeing everybody else, and you don't want to be role playing, having difficult conversations with a staff member about how to fire the person and stuff like that. So you have to figure out how to use other means. And I figured out that we can use AI to do this. And so I'm going to show you what I did. Very rough. I just did a one take, so it's not even perfect from my standard in terms of how I gave feedback. But what I did was I went to ChatGPT, created a scenario that I'm a founder of a startup that's scaling up, and I've hired a marketing expert, and this expert has been underperforming. Now, first of all, I just want to highlight that the scenario we came up with, and when I say we, this is myself and the AI, we highlighted 4 areas that they need to be given feedback on. One of them was missing deadlines, then lack of initiative, quality of work, and team complaints. Now, all these were tied in, okay? But one of the things that is important, that whenever you're going to give feedback, you try and make sure that it's what's called pinpointed. It's isolated to one thing so that that person can get it and that they can see that how they can change it. When you pack too many things in, then it's like, which one do I then change? The other thing that's important is you should have observed this thing 2, maybe 3 times in order to find enough evidence to be able to bring to this person. And then more important, the more in the conversation you can get the person to articulate it themselves, the job is done. So what you're going to find is I'm going to be using this P.A.I.D framework, but I'm actually going to be using it just by asking questions first. And so it is a bit, it's a rough conversation. It is a bit robotic when you hear the ChatGPT, but notwithstanding, try and figure out what I'm saying, and then when we listen to it first, then we're going to come back again, and I'm going to break down how I use this acronym and what I did. Very intentional, even though I would say myself, by the way, it's not perfect, okay? I actually was just experimenting with this, and then I just thought, wow, this is good enough. But there'll be some things I would have still done even better. So don't judge me, okay? But it is a first take. So let's listen to it first, and then let's break down what actually happened. So let's listen to the conversation. So the conversation starts with me actually saying, how are you? But I don't think that part was recorded. So we're just going to go straight in.
It's been all right. Just trying to keep up with everything. The startup pace is definitely fast, but I'm learning a lot. How about you?
Yeah, things are going okay. I just wanted to use this time to talk about a few things that I've observed, and just want us to talk it through. Is that all right?
Of course, Toy. I appreciate the opportunity to talk. What's on your mind?
Yeah, well, just want to talk about, submitting deadlines. What's your perspective around how things have gone over the last few projects that we've had going on?
Well, to be honest, I know I've struggled with a couple of deadlines. I've been trying to balance everything, but sometimes things pile up faster than I expect. I wouldn't say I'm completely off track, but I do recognize that I've missed a few targets. Was there a specific project you had in mind?
Yeah, well, let's talk about 2 weeks ago, just to get your understanding of when was the deadline again?
If I remember correctly, the deadline for the campaign content was on Monday, the 22nd, but I ended up submitting it on Thursday, the 25th. I know that was late, and I take responsibility for that. I
All right.
thought I'd have more time, but things got busier than I expected.
All right, and that's an example. I mean, let's go back to the previous project about 3 or 4 weeks ago. What about that one? What was the deadline?
Right? That was the product launch email sequence. The deadline was Friday the 5th, but I ended up submitting it on Tuesday the 9th. I remember there were some last minute changes I was trying to incorporate, but yeah, I missed that deadline too.
Okay, yeah. And if we were to go back a previous month, there's a similar example. Now, and that's wanted to bring this to your own awareness. So in between those dates, like for instance, the last one of the 22nd and then submitting it in the 25th, did you do anything at all?
Yeah, I was working on it, but I got caught up with other tasks. I kept tweaking parts of the content, trying to make it better, but in hindsight, I probably overthought it instead of just getting it done on time. There were also a couple of unexpected meetings that threw me off schedule. But yeah, I see the pattern now.
Okay, and this is what I want to bring to your awareness, which is that missing deadlines like this isn't helping you, and also your team members. It's having an impact on them as well. Does this make sense?
Yeah, I get that.
All right.
I didn't really think about how it was affecting the team, but now that you're pointing it out, I can see how my delays might have put extra pressure on them.
All right.
I didn't mean for that to happen, but I understand why it's a concern.
Okay. All right. Well, let's talk about moving forward now. So, starting with you, based on this, what do you think you can do, first of all, to try and get things in on time?
I think one thing I need to do is manage my time better and be more realistic about how long tasks will take. I tend to keep refining things, which ends up delaying submission. Maybe I should set an internal deadline for myself a day earlier so I have time for last-minute tweaks without actually missing the real deadline. Also, I could communicate sooner if I see a delay coming instead of waiting until after the deadline has passed. Maybe checking in with you or the team midway through a project could help keep me accountable. What do you think?
Yeah, and that's exactly what I wanted to suggest there, which is that, we're all busy. As you know, things are moving quite fast. But yes, if you can hint that I'm having a bit of a problem here, maybe other people can chip in. Also, remember that part of your role is to delegate and get people involved. So, but you've said it right. This is something that you can work on, help other people to understand where you're at and not overthink things. Is that all right?
Yeah, that makes sense. I think I've been trying to handle everything on my own instead of asking for help or giving a heads up when I'm falling behind. I'll make it a priority to check in earlier if I see a challenge coming, and I'll also work on delegating better where possible. I appreciate the feedback, Toy. I'll do my best to improve.
All right, so that's the full conversation. Now let's break down and let me show you what the P.A.I.D model is all about. So the P.A.I.D model starts off with P, which is to position the conversation. Now maybe you didn't get more of that, but what would be important if it was constructive feedback is to find a place where it's just you and the person. It would have been me and Alex, maybe in an office. If it was remote, it would have been making sure that you're in a private place. Let's just have this conversation and just set up the whole conversation. How are you? Things like that, just to put the person at ease. That's an important part, especially if it's constructive feedback, is that you want to make sure that the person is at ease. And I also even asked for permission. I said, is it okay for us to have a chat about this? And you might not realize how important saying something like that is, but it really sets everything up so that they're prepared. Okay, so that's the first thing. The second thing is then the action. Now, what you would find is rather than me saying this is what I saw, I actually even brought it up by saying, I want to talk about this. Now, first of all, are you even aware about anything? And it was interesting to see that Alex herself mentioned that, yes, there are a few things that's happened. And then she then said, is there anything specific? And I said, yeah, let's talk about the projects. And then she said, yes, there's been some delay, and was able to say Monday the 22nd was the deadline, but I actually put it in on the 25th of the month, right? So what's the point? You want to definitely highlight the action. Now, when we say action, I would normally call this observable behavior. Whenever I've trained, anybody who's heard me train, say, how do we define behavior? What we see people do, what we hear them say. What we see people do, what we hear them say. The more you can stay at that level is very evidential. It's evidence, right? Now, in this case, I wasn't there to see. But by asking the question, when was the deadline? And if you really go back and listen, you find out that I'm also just clarifying that, were you even aware that that was the deadline? So rather than going in with an assumption that you knew the deadline and you didn't bring it in on time, you can ask the question. So it could be with anything. If there was an expectation set, then it's better for you to first of all clarify from that person by asking the question, did you know what the expectation was? And in this case, she was very specific. But remember what I said, that if you're giving constructive feedback, it's important that it's maybe one, two, most likely three, that you've seen this behavior. Then there's a trend. And so not only did I ask that, then I said, 4 weeks ago, what about that project? And then she also mentioned the 5th, and they came in on another date. I can't remember right now, right? But again, this is where you're bringing that person to awareness. So maybe the A can also stand for awareness, because by asking these kind of questions, you are trying to find out, is this person even aware of their own behavior? And this can be for anything. If somebody's speaking over somebody in meetings, you've seen it 2 or 3 times, you can first of all ask, have you noticed when you interact in these meetings, do you observe anything? You always ask these questions. It will go a long way. So now that we've highlighted the behavior, right, handing in these things late every time, you will even hear from her saying, I get the pattern now, but already, without me even saying anything. Then the other thing with I is the impact. And this is where I share that this is having an impact not on you in terms of your own credibility, but also with your team members as well. And this is where you're trying to get that person to understand that this is a behavior that's not only impacting you, but it's also impacting other people as well. And that's where you really want to try and drive this to say, this is not helping. This is not helping you. This is not helping other people. And this actually then also helps with the other feedback, because I've narrowed it down to one specific thing. And that is how Alex can take this on board. Then once we've identified this and we've highlighted the impact, and Alex has acknowledged that, yes, this is something that I definitely can see that I need to change, then we move to the final part, which is the D, which is either do. How do we get to do the right thing? And in some cases, you want to do a don't. This is what we don't do. We don't want to do this anymore. So the D is for do, or sometimes it could be don't, but definitely you want to discuss it. You don't just want to say, don't do this, unless it's something that could have serious implications. Then absolutely you want to go in saying, don't ever do this again. But in many cases, giving the person respect, you actually want to ask and say, so how can we change this? What can we do different? And as you can see here, she does exactly that, takes ownership and makes sure said that she's going to make these changes. So with this framework, I want you to take this. Again, you can use ChatGPT to simply role play this scenario. What is that scenario? What is the situation that you're seeing with maybe your team members that you want to give them feedback? You can now type it into ChatGPT, say, you play this role. Let me use this framework, this P.A.I.D framework. just put this same slide in it, say, use this, and this is what I'm going to use on you. And then when I prompted ChatGPT, I said, I don't want you just to be easy. It wasn't really difficult, right? But what you find is that when you really get specific, it is difficult not to comply or to acknowledge because of the way I've approached her, right? And so it does eliminate room for excuse. So try this out. Let me know in the chat what you think about it, and there'll be more content like this coming. Speak to you soon.